During this video about Adobe Experience Design, we are going to talk about how to create presentations into Adobe XD. In fact, we can use our artboards as slides and create presentations. We can create two main types of presentations with XD and with its prototype tools. We can create manual presentations and also automatic presentations. So, this is kind of similar of what we do into PowerPoint, for example, but of course, between XD and PowerPoint, we have a lot of differences. So, we saw into the previous video what we can do with the prototype tools, and during this video, we are going to start from zero. In fact, we are not going to use our usual tutorial file, but we are going to create a new custom size file. So, we are now onto the welcome screen and we can click on custom size. If we do not choose the sizes of our file, of our artboards from the welcome screen for our custom size file, we can always choose them from here. As we see, we have a blank space for our work area, and we can now click on the Artboard tool, and we see at our right all of the formats that we can use, but we are going to click in our work area and create an artboard by clicking and dragging with our mouse. So this is the moment in which we decide what dimensions will have our presentation. So we can decide to have a presentation to see on a particular smartphone or computer, but we are now in this video going to use the full HD format. So we can write on the width 1920 and onto the height 1080, which are the common dimensions for the full HD files. So we have our first artboard, and we are not going to have any scrolling into this video. This is because we are going to see our slides by simply clicking, for example, on our mouse or waiting some time. So we are not creating, for example, a web page in which we will have to scroll to see the other elements. So we have now our first artboard, and we can click onto the name to change it. We are going to name this first artboard slide 1. So we have now our first slide, and we can, for example, fill it with black. So we can now copy and paste this artboard. So we can, by just clicking on Alt, copy our artboards and use the smart guides to align them and make them the same distance between them. So I have copied another artboard. We are going to have 5 slides into this presentation. So we can see from the layers that Adobe XD has automatically named the slides slide 101, 102, and going on. So we can rename our slides in a quick way by just rename them from the layers. So we can click 2 times onto the name and just erase the things that we do not want to see into the name. So we can name the slide 3, the slide 4, and also the slide 5. So we have now our slides in order, and we can start, for example, by putting some text into the slides. So during this video, we are not going to see in a specific way the graphic elements. We are going to put some elements into the slides to use for the presentation, but we are not going to get into the graphic elements in a specific way. So we are now going to create a text for the first artboard, which is the first slide. So we can, for example, write a text, and we can write welcome to the presentation. So we have now our text. We cannot really see it, so we can change its color. For example, we can change it in green, and we can Since this is an insertion, scale the text by this handle. So we can use the smart guides to align the text with the artboard, and we are going to see this text only into the first line. So we are now going to create a text that we want to see in all of these slides. So what we are going to do is write the text, for example, www.jbdesign.et, and now we can scale our text and put it into the artboard. So we can also put some graphic elements near our text, for example, a triangle. We can also fill it with green. So we can put this triangle here, and we can click on Ctrl+C and then Ctrl+V to copy the triangle, and we can use the alignment tools to align these three elements. So, of course, with the smart guides, we can see that we can make them the same distance, and we can use the alignment tools, and we can click onto all of these elements, these three elements, to align them in a vertical way. So we can click on Align Middle vertically, and we can see that they are all onto the same line. So we can now make a group of these three elements. So we can click onto the elements, we can select them, and then we can click with the right side of our mouse and then click on Group. Now we have our group, and we can go to the Assets and click on Components. So we have now an instance, we can see the green border, and of course, if we change this first instance, all of its copies will change, because as we saw in one of the previous videos, they remain connected. So of course, we want to copy this element into the same position into all of these slides. So what we are going to do is to select this component, click on Ctrl+C, and then click on Ctrl+V. If we just do this, we can see that we will have to move our element into the other slides, and we can use the smart guides, but there's a more quick way. So we can just click on the element, click on Ctrl+C, and then clicking onto the next slide, and then clicking on Ctrl+V. And as we can see, we have now these two elements into the same position. So we are going to do this with all of these slides. And now we have all of our slides with this text. So the next thing that we are going to do is to put some images into all of these slides. So we can do it really quickly by just importing an image from our folder, and we can scale it and then put it into the first artboard. Of course, we want different images for all of these slides, but we can copy this image into all of these slides so that we can have them into the same position and then substitute the images that we want to change. So we can select the image, click on Ctrl+C, then clicking onto the next slide, and then clicking on Ctrl+V. And we can do it for all of these slides as we did for the text. And now we have into all of these slides the same image, but we can go to our folder, clicking on the image that we want, dragging into the other image that we want to substitute, and then releasing the mouse. So we can have different images in different slides, but into the same position and with the same dimensions. So we have now enough elements to play the presentation, to play the preview. So we can click on the first slide and then click on play, and we will have to click on the arrows of our keyboards to go on with the slides, so we can see the presentation as a loop. So we will always go back to the first slide as we go on. So now we can go to the prototype area and start creating links. We saw for now the manual type of presentation, manual because we will have to click on something to go on with the presentation. We are going also to create a manual presentation with the links into the prototype area, and then we are finally going to create an automatic presentation into the prototype area. Now we can click on prototype, and of course we can see that since we have the first slide selected, we can see the tool to create links. So we are now going to create a link with all of these slides, so we can create the link with the first and the second slide, and by going onto the link with our mouse, we can see that the trigger is tapped. So when we are into the preview, we will have to click on our mouse to see the next slide. So we can create links between every slide, and if we want, we can also create a link between the last and the first slide to create a loop. But in this video, we are not going to do that. So the result will always be to have a loop as we add into the design area when we clicked onto the presentation. So if we click on Ctrl A in our keyboard, we can see all of the links that we have created. So if you have any doubt on the links, you can always click on Ctrl A and see all of the links that you have created. From interaction, we can see that we have a tap trigger, an action, which is a transition type, a non-destination, a dissolve animation with an ease out easing and a duration of 0.3 seconds. So we can now click on the first slide and click on play. We can see that now we will have just to click on the left side of our mouse to see the presentation. And as we can see, we cannot go back to the previous slides or to any slides when we are into the last slide. And also we can see that we have this particular fade. So what we are going to do now is to create an element to go back to the previous slides. So we can go to the design area, go to the last slide and create a text. So we can write, for example, back, and then we can create with a triangle, an arrow, and use it as an element to go back. So we can also rotate this arrow, and now we can align it with the text. So we are going to enlarge this text a little bit, and now we can put it here. So we have now our element to go back, and we can copy it into the other elements. So we can first align them vertically between them, and now we can copy them. So we can click on Ctrl C, go to the previous slide in this case, and then click on Ctrl V, as we did for the text and the images before. So of course, we are not going to put the back option into the welcome screen of our presentation. So we can now go to the prototype area and create the links between the back element and the previous artboard. So we can click on back, and then we can create a link. So we can go to the other artboard. We can see that we have to trigger this element with a tab, which is fine. So we can do it also with the other elements. And now we have all of our links. We can click on Ctrl A to control if they are all where we want them. So we can now click on Preview, and as we can see, we can click onto the artboard to go on with the slides, and if we want to go back to the previous slides, we can click on Back. So we have now created a manual presentation, so a presentation that we can go through by clicking on some elements of our keyboards or of our mouse, and we can name this series of slides. So we can go to the design area, create a text, and then we can name these slides manual presentation. So since this is an insertion, we can enlarge the text, and now we can copy and paste our slides. So we can select them all, click on Ctrl C, and then click on Ctrl V. And we can drag them here, and we can also copy the text, and we can write automatic presentation onto this text. So we are going to go to the prototype area, and we are going to click now on Ctrl A, and we can see that we have our links in here, but we still do not have any links into this automatic presentation. So we are going to create different types of links in here. So we can create the first link between the first and the second slide by simply dragging our tool, and then we can see that we have a tab link. We are going to create a time link, so we will trigger this link with time, so by waiting some seconds, and we can choose, for example, the animation, so we can choose slide left. We can have an ease out easing and a duration of 0.3 seconds. So when we create the first link, what Adobe XD is going to do is to copy this link when you create another link. So let's see this in a practical way. We can click onto this artboard, and as we create this link, we can click on it, and we can see that we have the same options for this link that we had into this link. So we can do this with all of these slides, and we can now play this presentation. So we can click on play, and as you can see, I am not clicking anything. Let's see it again. As you can see, we have a 0.3 seconds. Let's change it to 2 seconds. But of course, we have changed, in this case, only the first link. So in this case, we will have to change it manually. So we can click on all of the artboards and then select the option that we want. So we can now play the presentation again, and we can see that now we have a lot more time to see the slides. So of course, I cannot click anything into this presentation because I have not any tab links or other types of links rather than time. And now we can, for example, choose some different options for the different slides. So it is an automatic presentation, so we will let the trigger to be time in all of these slides, but we can choose, for example, from slide 2 to slide 3 to have a slide down animation, from slide 3 to slide 4, a push left animation, and going on to have some different types. So we can now play again the presentation, and as you can see, we have different type of transitions, of animations in this case. So during this video, we saw how to create a manual presentation and also an automatic presentation with the prototype tools. So this is all for this video. Thank you for watching this tutorial about Adobe Experience Design. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comment. I invite you to see the other videos and tutorials into this channel. And thank you again, and we will see each other in the next video about Adobe Experience Design.